Hello, everyone, and welcome back to what will undoubtedly be a doozy of the Cover One Roundup here, live on the Cover One YouTube channel each and every Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I don't know time zones, so I don't know what standard time or what the other one is. It's always at 7, so we're off to a great start. I'm drinking beer, baby. So
go.
welcome. This is the Drought-a-palooza. I'm your host, Kyle Silagyi, joined by David Fox. He's here every week. We have a special guest who I will introduce here in a couple of moments. But before I do that, I just want to quickly say what this episode is. It's the Drought-a-palooza. It's the episode where we look back on the 17-season playoff drought that marred our childhoods. For us here on the podcast, childhoods. For some people in chat, maybe just people watching later, whatever. Maybe like your adult years, in which case I'm sorry if this Bills team, there were numerous teams, but the Bills of the early 2000s probably took years off of a lot of people's lives. Maybe they did for us as well, and we'll figure that out later. But so the Buffalo Bills didn't make the playoffs for 17 years. So we're going to be looking back on that time today and determining what is the droughtiest thing. What is the one thing, whether that be a player, a game, a moment, what is the one thing that you can point to and look back on and say, that is the drought? That is an encapsulation of the drought. That is the one thing that best personifies what it is. So joining me today to figure out what that one thing is. First, it's David Fox. David, how are you?
We've got a glass of wine, and we've got the Marshawn Lynch jersey on.
I have thoughts about Marshawn.
What more can you ask for? I am very excited, and I'm excited to be joined by our special guest tonight,
Esteemed
Kyle,
guest panelist. Also here, special guest, it's Victoria from the Tuck Rule. Victoria, what's going on?
I am thrilled to be here, Kyle. I'm doing well. I've got my cold brew here ready to go. When you asked me to talk about the playoff drought, I believe you said that you didn't know anyone who liked bad football as much as me. So this is right in my wheelhouse. Later this week, on my podcast, The Tuck Rule, we're going to be recording a whole hour-long episode about Browns 6, Bills 3.
Yes!
So yeah, this is right in the wheelhouse here. So I am thrilled to talk about this.
Victoria, you said you had a cold brew. Was that a clever word for beer, or are you talking like an actual coffee?
Cold brew coffee. I believe that. I honestly, now that it's summer, I just want to say this real quick. If you drink cold coffee like I do, and you're not making your own cold brew, missing out. Totally, absolutely missing out. Leaving money on the table. I mean, yeah, it is time consuming, but definitely do it.
I was gonna say who drinks coffee, because I don't. But
get out of here. David had other things come up. He had to leave. Okay, no. So what is this show? I already kind of said what it is off top, but I will again do that, and then we'll get into it because we have a lot to get through in 2 hours. And as I was saying before we went live, we're going to be pushing up against the clock. So like I said, we are going to try to find the one thing that best encapsulates what the drought is. And again, that was 17 years. So there were a lot of bad things that happened in that 17-year stretch. As one could imagine, right? A football team did not make the playoffs for 17 straight years. Obviously, a lot of things went wrong. So today we're going to be talking about a lot of those things that went wrong. And so I have divided these things up into 4 different categories. The first category that we're going to be going over is specific games. I've highlighted a handful of games here between 2001 and 2016 that I think are pretty good representations of what those 17 years were like for Buffalo Bills fans. And then also we have coaches. We're going to be going over the coaches of the drought. We're going to be going over our favorite players of the drought, and then just the moments that stick out to us. Things that happened, whatever. What moments are. And then we are going to be picking one winner from each category, putting those 4 up against each other at the end, and then that is the winner. That is the thing that best encapsulates the draft. or not the draft, the drought.
Listen, the draft can encapsulate a lot of the problems with the Bills.
Speaking of draft, I'm drinking beers.
Let's go.
No, see,
great segue, Kyle.
This was going to be I kind of ruined the bit a little bit. So the joke was going to be that I wanted to hide the fact that I'm drinking a beer, but I'm doing so with a koozie that has a beer logo on it, which was
They'll
funny,
never know.
Which was
They'll
funny only to me.
That's what they teach you over at Podcasting University. You want to do visual bits.
PU.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
That's a good point, Victoria. Okay, moving on. We're getting started here. We're just going to get right into it here with the specific game category. I think we have to start in what might be the earliest example of see, this was only a couple years into the drought, but it was very obvious at this point that things were probably going to get ugly. 2004, week 17. The Bills aren't necessarily in a win and they're in situation, but they need to win in order to keep their playoff hopes alive. I think they were on a 6 or 7 game winning streak heading into their week 17 matchup in the 2004 season.
I believe that they'd won 8 out of their last 9. I think they started 1-5 or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah, they started ridiculously poorly. And then, so they're going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are 14-1 at this point. Obviously the better team. They have Ben Roethlisberger, who's just having a crazy year, okay. But they didn't play any of their starters. It's all backups, and it's all third stringers. The Buffalo Bills just have to win this game against the Pittsburgh Steelers JV squad to remain in postseason contention, and they lose by the score of 29-24. Some highlights of the game. Ryan Lindell missed a 28-yard field goal in the game. Not that would have, I guess, made a difference, but it could have. Also, James Harrison scores his only regular season touchdown. Obviously, we all know the playoff touchdown, but he scores his only regular season touchdown in this game. And also, Pittsburgh had a 9-minute drive in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. So something that I love about this game is that the Steelers used it to preview all of the scary players that would soon be very good for them. So Willie Parker has a 58-yard touchdown in this, and no one knew who Willie Parker was yet, but Bills fans knew.
Right, Bills fans knew. Yeah, well, at that time, it was just the Bills had this dangerous stretch in the early 2000s where every backup irrelevant running back would have a career game against the Buffalo Bills. It happened every week, seemingly. So this was one of the earlier examples of that. And then, James Harrison was relatively young at this point. Getting that touchdown. He might have been his first or second year, to be honest. But
I think he was a rookie.
David, what do you remember of this game?
So here's the thing. My football fandom started much later in life. I wasn't until I was in late middle school, early high school where I actually started to watch football consistently. However, what I am looking at right now in profootballreference.com is this season. And so the Bills in week 10 lost to New England in New England 29-6. Okay, they are now 3-6 on this season. They then beat the Rams 37-17. They beat the Seahawks in Seattle 38-9. They beat the Dolphins in Miami 42-32. They beat the Browns 37-7. The Bengals 33-17. They have scored 30 plus points in every single one of these games.
Yep. They were really nice. They were really good.
They absolutely pissed their pants against the backups of the Steelers and scored 24 points.
If I remember correctly,
this is not in Pittsburgh. This is in Buffalo.
Yep.
If I remember correctly, for a long time, this was the 2004 Bills was the best graded Football Outsiders team that didn't make the playoffs.
Yep. They had incredible DVOA. Yeah. I might argue that 2004 is the most drought season because there are so many iconic losses here. Week 7, you have the loss to the Baltimore Ravens, which is the game where 37-year-old Deion Sanders has a pick 6. There is so much special misery happening here. They lost.
This team started 0-4. They were
Yep.
0-4 to start the season.
Yep, and they just had to beat the Steelers, and they needed the Rams to do something, I believe. And whatever the Rams had to do, they ended up doing it. So if they'd managed to beat the JV team, they would have made it.
Tommy Maddox in this game.
God.
XFL MVP.
That's right. Never forget.
I thought with Bledsoe at the helm, we could have beaten Pittsburgh backups. Yeah, that should have happened. But like, if you watch, obviously, I was a child when Drew Bledsoe was doing his thing with the Bills. But watching the highlights of this game today, it just looked like the offense, at least in the red zone, was just hand the ball to Willis McGahee. Which, like, I mean, that's not a bad plan, I guess. Willis McGahee had 2 touchdowns in this game, but just like seeing how the Willis McGahee saga ended, kind of gross a little bit.
Yeah,
we'll talk about it.
we certainly have some Willis McGahee stuff to get to, but so this is a strong contender, but I don't think this will ultimately be the game that we choose to represent this category, just because, like, but it is a real Billsy loss. It is a real Billsy loss.
Why don't we go through 2007
Let's just
and the rest of them?
We have to go. This is a real Billsy loss too. Next game I wrote down about here. 2007, Week 5, Monday Night Football. Dallas Cowboys travel into Orchard Park to take on the Buffalo Bills. And what is the Bills at this point? First Monday Night Football game since the Jim Kelly era. Jim Kelly is in attendance at this game. They make a big deal out of it. Monday Night Football's back. Primetime's back, baby. The Bills are relevant again. Tony Romo throws 5 interceptions in this game, has 6 turnovers, and the Bills end up losing. George Wilson has has a pick six on Tony Romo's first drop back. He throws another pick on his second drop back. Again, ends up having 5 interceptions. Terrence McGee, I think, at the start of the second half, has like a crazy kick return for a touchdown. The Bills are leading 23-14 or 24-13. Sorry, I'm dyslexic. Bills are leading 24-13 at one point in the second half. And they managed to blow it. Cowboys score, recover in the dwindling moments. Cowboys score, recover their onside kick, and then Nick Folk, a rookie Nick Folk, kicks a 53-yard field goal to win the game. Victoria, what do you remember from this abomination of a football game?
So, first of all, even as close as the Bills got to winning this game, they really had no business doing it. They scored 3 touchdowns, and 2 of them were pick sixes. One of them was a kickoff return. So, like, also, I believe in this game there was a iconic Brian Moorman 4th down fake punt that he took up the right sideline, I believe. So the Cowboys outgained the Bills 385 to 229. Trent Edwards did not do anything all that impressive in this game, if I recall. Yeah.
Did he ever do anything impressive?
How dare you?
He certainly had finer moments. He certainly had finer moments. Roscoe Parrish has 6 catches for 37 yards in this game. Good for him. Touching the ball.
Wow.
Roscoe Parrish is one of those guys, and there's like a number of them, but like he always sticks in my mind as somebody. If he was just a little bit younger, if he had come into the NFL in like the 2010s, he would be so much more well used and valuable in the NFL now than when in the 2000s when he's this 5'9" receiver trying to play the Z in the ground and pound era of football. Just like
I have a question about Roscoe Parrish. Again, I was a child through much of his relevant years. Was he ever good, or did I just like him because he was fast?
He was very fast, and when football players are fast, that means they're cool. That's the rules.
Exactly, right? Tavon Austin is still making a career out of it.
Exactly. Tavon Austin, listen, pre-order that jersey. That's all I'm saying. Roscoe was an excellent returner. It took them way too long to figure out how to use him, but we're definitely gonna talk about that more with Stevie in terms of players who are much more suited to today's game. But yeah, I feel like Roscoe could have definitely had had a better career in a better situation. This was a terrible team to go to.
Yeah.
A underrated horrible consequence of this game for me is that I think it added 6 years onto George Wilson's NFL career. He played a lot of snaps for the Bills, and he was bad for the vast majority of them, folks. He was not good.
Hey, he.
Oh man.
Have you ever seen his eyes though? I forgot what George Wilson looked like. I looked
man
up
had
George
a-
Wilson.
The man had a great combo of beard and bald head. Like, not everyone could pull it off as well as he did.
Perhaps he just like kept walking into. I mean, the Bills had a revolving door at general manager for a little bit, including Marv Levy and Russ Brandon.
We'll get
So
there.
maybe George Wilson just kept walking into these rooms, and the GM would get flustered and be like, "Oh yeah, we'll keep you around." But just you never know. This was not a good game. This was a bad game. Perhaps not as bad as the next game that we're going to talk about, which eerily similar set of circumstances. The next game we're going to talk about. If you guys are ready, I will move forward here.
Absolutely.
Move on. Let's do it.
2009, 2 years later, the Bills open up the season on Monday Night Football yet again against the New England Patriots in Foxborough, the AFL ceremony game or whatever. The Patriots are wearing those red uniforms and the Bills are wearing throwback uniforms as they often do in prime time. But
don't forget that the refs wore the like
they did.
orange stripe. Bring those back. Listen, referees would get a 100% bump in reputation among just general fans if they bring back those uniforms. That's all I'm saying.
I think my red flag as a human being is that I would wear that just as a shirt. Like I would wear that with a pair of jeans and wear it to a bar.
Kyle Silagyi Fit Watch. My God.
It'd be a great outfit. Am I wrong?
Yes, you're wrong, but that's okay. Don't let that stop you.
I will look up.
Sorry, we have a Aaron Schobel pick 6 in this game to mirror the Chris Kelsey pick 6 of our previous entry. We have a Sean Nelson touchdown.
Sean Nelson. I thought that dude was going to be like great. I thought like, oh, this is like the next good Bills tight end, or maybe the first good Bills tight end.
We had a screen game in this game. We have Fred Jackson and Trent Edwards connecting semi-frequently.
That was pretty much
that's how the offense is moving.
Level of offense that they had in this entire game. It was pretty impressive how often the Bills went to the screen on third down and how often the Patriots were just like, what?
What is this? I mean, to be fair, if I were a defensive coordinator and this other team was just like adamant that Fred Jackson was the threat in the screen game, I too would be like, "What? Okay, that's not going to work." But
and this is T.O.'s first game as a Buffalo Bill, and he finished with what was it, 2 catches, 26 yards, something like that. And it took until like the third quarter for him to get a target, I think.
Trent Edwards was I don't know. Trent Edwards probably a very nice man.
Probably we can't even confirm.
Probably a very nice man. Football was probably not the career for him long term.
Trent Edwards was so obsessed with checking the ball down to anyone that could take it. It's why like Fred Jackson and I think Derek Schumann, who was the second tight end at the time, or maybe he was starting tight end. It's hard to say. But he had like 14 catches to start that season. For no reason. Like through 2 weeks, because he only played 2 weeks before he got hurt. And he had like 14 catches. Like, why? And why?
This is a very cursed moment for Bills' offensive scheme, but also the Bills' tight end room. Very, very tough. We got some Jonathan Stupar getting snaps. Derek Fine. Yeah. It was tough.
I remember Derek Fine exclusively only from playing Madden 2010. Because because like I can't think of a single catch or play that Derek Fine ever made in real life, but I remember using him because he was like the number one option at the time in Madden 10. So I was like, he's there.
That was a very cursed Bills roster to use in Madden.
God.
I guess we should probably talk about Leotis here, huh?
Yeah, what happened in this game? So the Bills are leading 24-13, which is the same score that they were leading the Cowboys by in the second half. But in this case, they are leading the Patriots 24-13 with 2 minutes remaining in the contest. The Patriots score. They don't onside kick. They just kind of, they do an actual kickoff. Standard kickoff. Leotis McKelvin back to return. Fumbles the football. Patriots recover. They promptly score as Tom Brady does. And
okay, hold on. There's some context here that we need to talk about here, right? So there is 2 minutes, 4 seconds remaining on the clock, something like that, like just over 2 minutes. The ball is kicked about 3 or 4 yards into the end zone. On the broadcast, you see he hesitates for about a half second. Like, should I take this out? Should I not take this out? And part of me has always wondered, did he take it out to try and run out part of the clock to get to the 2 minute warning before the offensive series started? Or was Leotis just thinking like, man, I got this. I don't need no touchback. I don't need a freaking touchback.
I prefer to imagine that he thought he was going to take it to the house.
Yes, exactly.
Like that seems more like Leotis's mindset, right? Like he is that type of dude who's just like, I'm housing this. I got it.
Yeah.
We don't need to worry about offense. I'm ending this game. And unfortunately, he was right.
He did. No, yeah, he did end the game.
Oh, dear. Yeah, this was, I must have been 11 years old for this game. And just staying up late, real late. And Bills have an 11-point lead with 2 minutes to go. And then, some horrible Bills fans like trash Leotis McKelvin's yard. Just horrible stuff. Terrible vibes around this game. Horrible. This is. I feel like this one might be slightly overlooked. I think people remember the Cowboys game more. This one might hurt more to me than the Cowboys game.
I remember this game a lot because even though I didn't watch it all happen live, I remember this just like constant, like, I remember for whatever reason, maybe I was just always tortured as a child, like mentally, like even when I wasn't a Bills fan, I just had that Bills fan mentality of just like, we're just gonna hurt ourselves today, I guess. And so
the Bills came to you.
The Bills came to.
Oh dear.
And I remember watching the highlights. I think I've largely watched the highlights just so I could see that Aaron Schobel pick six, because it is pretty impressive because he recognizes that screen and he just waits there and he sticks his hand straight up and he just houses that thing. It's seriously like super impressive. But it's like, oh god, that game really just like I think it's such a great Drought moment because you do get that just like that little moment of like, man, are they gonna do this? Are they gonna beat Brady in New England after and that's Brady's first game after his torn ACL?
And
this one,
it's such a great Drought game just because it is the highs, it is the lows. You get everything that the Drought was in one game. But it is in prime time, which kind of ruins it because the Bills didn't often play in prime time. So that kind of, it shows that the Bills were more relevant than they actually were during this time, because that was kind of part of the pain, is that like nobody cared about the Bills, which, I mean, and why would they? But it was just like, the Bills like sucked, and then you would watch ESPN or other outlets and they would tell you that they sucked for different reasons, and it's like, no, idiot, watch the team. They suck, but for different reasons than why you're saying that they suck. But anyway, we're moving on because that game sucked. But this one, Victoria, you're going to have a lot to say about this game because, as we said, you have a podcast coming out about it this week.
Oh dear.
2009, a couple of weeks later, week 5, the Bills take on the Lake Erie rival, right? It's the Battle of Lake Erie in Orchard Park. This game ends.
Oh dear.
Buffalo Bills, 3 points. Cleveland Browns, 6. There are 16 total punts that take place in this game.
Let me tell you about it. There are as many penalties as there are punts in this game. I recently watched this entire game front to back. I did it on 1.25 speed because I don't hate myself that much. But there are 9 false starts the Bills commit in this game at home. 9. That is, I don't know if that's a record, but 9 false starts at home feels like a record. 2 of them go on Demetrius Bell. I think we have 2 Jonathan Scott false starts. We have 2 Kirk Chambers false starts. I believe Lee Evans gets in on the action. This one is special. There are so many subplots that I could get into here, but I will say after watching it recently that Mohamed Massaquoi is the worst football player I've ever seen play professional football in this game. He has a full-on 5 drops in this football game.
Seriously?
Yep, 6 targets, 1 catch for 16.
Is that why Derek Anderson is 2 for 17 for 23 yards in this game?
Yes. It is not as bad a game as I remembered it being upon rewatching it.
What is it? Is it a good game or just not a bad game?
It is certainly a bad game.
Okay.
There is a moment here when I believe the Bills go for it on 4th and 24 from their own from Cleveland's 31-yard line.
Bold. That's honestly, it's very bold of Dick Duran. Like it was that. That might be the boldest he's ever been in his life. 4th and 20. Something.
Yeah. They pretty much only did it because of wind. They couldn't kick a field goal. Didn't want to punt it, I guess. But yeah, that is really something to see.
To punt it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Brian Moorman already had 8 punts. The Browns won this game by punting. This is some of the best punting I've ever seen, to be totally honest with you. Excellent special teams play for the Browns here.
And they recovered 2 Roscoe Parrish muffed punts.
Oh God.
Right.
Yeah.
One of which happened with 3 minutes left in the game, setting the Browns up in field goal range to ultimately win the game. There are a lot of great things in this game that kind of encapsulate the state of Bills fandom at this point and how sad and desperate they were. I was watching highlights earlier, and they don't do it anymore really, but Bills fans used to, like people who sat in the front row used to put like signs along the siding with like clever wordplay or whatever. Mm-hmm. The players that these fans dedicated these signs to are very sad. There was a Brian Moorman sign, Moorman's Miracles. There was a George Wilson sign, George's Jungle, a Marcus Stroud sign, Stroud's Crowd, a Brian Scott sign, B. Scott's Bunch, and perhaps the most sad of all, the Batavia Party Zone. Never want to party in Batavia. Absolutely not. But so just
I have one last trivia fact that I would like to throw out there before we move on.
Go for it.
Do you guys know who the coordinators are for the Browns in this game, offensive and defensive?
I know the defensive coordinator is Rob Ryan.
There you go.
And I do know the offensive coordinator. It's Brian Daboll, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. Let's go.
Brian Daboll is responsible for this game. Oh dear God! Also, Alex Van Pelt was the Bills' offensive coordinator, and he is currently probably soon to be a head coach, just based on how the Shanahan crime family works. So
currently the Browns' offensive coordinator.
Yes. So the offensive coordinators here switch teams a decade later. This game was terrible. It's on YouTube, I think. If you if you're really depraved, hit me up and I'll send you a link. But also don't. Don't do that to yourself.
I'll send you the MP4 of Bill's 3 trading tapes. Not a good game at all. And like I said before we went on air, I am like 60% sure Derek Anderson ran an option play at some point in this game, which is just disgusting. What is Brian Dable doing? How is Brian Dable currently a head coach in the NFL? How was he not blackballed after that? But hey, what are you gonna do? So yeah, this is a great drought game just because it's so bad, it's so ugly, and the Bills lose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This team had Lee Evans and Trent and T.O. and lost a game by a field goal in which 9 total points were scored.
Oh, dear
That
God.
is genuinely hilarious to me.
This is the last... Or continue.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to move on, so...
Oh, cool. Yeah, I was also trying to do that.
This is the last game I want to quickly go over because I do think... I think it's going to be one of the 4 that we've already talked about here, but I do want to talk about 2010, which was a season that we'll talk about later, more in its entirety. 2010, week 12, the Bills take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. They lose in overtime, ultimately 16-19, but Fitz leads a 13-point comeback in the second half. Looks like he's going to do it. Looks like he's going to do the damn thing, lead the comeback, find Stevie Johnson wide open in the end zone. In overtime, Stevie Johnson drops the football. Steelers go down, kick a game-winning field goal and wins. After the game, Stevie Johnson blames God for dropping the football.
He doesn't just blame God. He logs on Twitter.
He went on Twitter to blame God.
Posting Hall of Fame.
Stevie Johnson, he had a lot of banger tweets. I don't know if you guys remember the North Korea tweet, but that was another tweet that he had. But yeah, he goes on Twitter to blame God for him dropping this football, which, again, this is a fine game because it's ugly. Bills come back, almost do it. And then in the end, we're left questioning if there is a higher power. And if there is, why would it do this to us?
Why would he let Stevie Johnson drop the football?
So Stevie Johnson's tweet, which then Adam Schefter retweets a full day later, ends up being the thing that like sort of early Bills Twitter rallies around this, clowns on Schefter, and that is directly where Bills Mafia comes from. So without this drop, there is no Bills Mafia.
So this is the Bills Mafia game.
Yes, this is the Schefter retweet that then incurs the wrath of Bills Twitter, and then they choose the name for themselves. So I might argue for this one, like in terms of being a absolutely defining drought moment. We do have a couple more we want to mention, I think.
Here's what I remember though about this game. There's a couple of things I remember very, very distinctly about this game. The first is that Fred Jackson middle screen that that went for a touchdown, and it absolutely should not have. But it was like, if there was one, there were some good things from the Jan Gailey era. His ability to create screens is actually pretty impressive, and that was very clear there. The other thing, one of the other things I remember is 3rd and 18 for the Steelers. And was it Marcus Stroud or Chris Kelsey had him in their grasp? Roethlisberger escapes and he starts running. And I remember seeing Marcus Stroud struggling to keep up with Ben Roethlisberger. But I also see Aaron Mabin, that poor bastard, trying to get the angle on Ben Roethlisberger, who still has 15 yards to go for a first down, and he just can't get there. And then, in overtime, the Bills get the ball first, and Leotis McKelvin almost houses it. Like, this is sort of the unknown fact of this. Leotis McKelvin almost ends this game in overtime on the opening kickoff, and I think he just trips on someone. And he gets stopped about near midfield, and then the Bills just couldn't do anything with the ball. They punted to the Steelers. Steelers punted back, and just a wonderful.
It was an ugly game.
Mess.
It was a wonderful mess, which is also how you could describe the drought. This is, again, I didn't realize though that this kind of was the spurned the birth or sparked the birth rather of Bills Mafia. Also 2 wins here that we wrote down in the Google outline here. But I mean, it's hard to say that a win kind of encapsulates the drought because there was so much misery. So
I would like to make a small argument for one of these wins, even though I don't think it should win. My argument would be that the drought was never all bad all the time. Like it was very rare that they would have 3 or 4 win seasons, right? Like most years they would be in the hunt. So I feel like we have a few wins here that show sort of moments in which we thought, okay, we've finally done it, and then it just turned out to be just all for naught. And again, I don't think these should win, but I felt like they should be mentioned as wins in which it's, and like there are definitely more. Like 2008, the year they started 5-1. You could argue that one of those wins could be on here. But we have the 2011 upset over the Patriots. Mm-hmm. That feels very self-explanatory.
Right. Yeah, it was a good game.
Yeah. Big comeback there. That one feels very natural.
Hype. Like that Drayton Florence interception is one of the most hype moments of my young Bills fandom.
Drayton Florence. Even on the drought episode, the name Drayton Florence is a name that I haven't thought of in a decade.
We're gonna remember some guys soon.
And then also, someone wrote down 2014 win over the Packers. That must have been Kyle Orton, correct?
Yep. Yes, it was.
Yeah,
Kyle Orton kind of doing his thing. I remember Sammy Watkins. I remember watching this game, just like haphazardly, like kind of just not really paying attention, but watching it. And then the Bills won, and then apparently it was followed up by a loss to the Raiders, which is incredibly on brand.
Well, so the way this game ended was on a safety, basically, in which Mario Williams strips Aaron Rodgers in the end zone, and Eddie Lacy picks up the ball, but it's inside 2 minutes, so the ball is called dead by whoever picks it up, unless it's the person who fumbled the ball.
Yep, Holy Roller Rule coming back. Ghosts of garbage Raiders wins from the 70s. Handing a dub to the Bills. I believe there's a Marcus Thigpen touchdown in this game.
Yep, and 2 Bakari Rambo interceptions.
Yes. This game also, this puts the Bills at 8-6. And then in the next week, they play a 2-12 Raiders team and they lose. That was very... Oh, that's very, very droughty to me.
Yeah.
That's great for like a 2-week stretch if you were to do a 2-week stretch, because that's highest of highs, lowest of lows.
Yep.
I'm going to bring in a mystery guest here.
Oh, boy.
Okay. I teased a mystery guest earlier, but if you watched last week, it's not a mystery guest because I said this person would be on. This mystery guest is going to help us determine which game is the droughtiest game, and then he's going to stick around to talk about the coaches of the drought and who's the droughtiest coach. The mystery guest is Aaron Quinn. Aaron, what's going on?
What's happening, fellas? I've been listening in the background some of these names.
Right?
Drayton
Florence.
Drayton Florence. Exactly. I have that Sports Illustrated or that picture of Florence celebrating with the fans somewhere in my pile of Bills memorabilia, but that's the only recollection I have of Drayton Florence other than another middling player that the Bills Mafia loved. He probably also had a banner on one of the sideline somewhere.
What could it have been? What's the
Flows Bros?
Well, and Florence's second best highlight was making Sanchez twitch, right? With Florence too, right?
That might be my favorite Bills gift. That one is so good.
So good Aaron, if you had you do have a say, but what is your choice out of the games that we've discussed? 2004 loss against the Steelers, Monday Night Football loss to the Cowboys. Monday Night Football lost to the Patriots. Bills 3, Browns 6. Stevie blames God, and then the 2 wins we just talked about. Which to you is the droughtiest game?
Okay, well, I wasn't prepared for this. That is tough.
That's on me.
That is tough. That Cleveland game was just awful. Time of my life. I'll never get that 3 hours back. I'm gonna have to go with the Patriots Monday night because I was there. I was at that game.
Oh,
you were
and
there.
I was there, and
God.
so I'm from New
Horrifying.
England. Yeah, I'm from
Right.
New England originally, and Maine, where I lived, is only 2.5 hours from the stadium. So we always went to the Bills. All my Patriots friends and I would go to the Bills Patriots games. And this one I was super excited for. It was the season opener, right? It was a doubleheader game, and they were wearing the AFL uniforms. This is when Reebok rolled out those. So I was freaking pumped. I had an AFL Paul Plaus New jersey, I think, or maybe I had a Marshawn Lynch one at the time. I'm not sure. Pumped, getting a ton of crap from New England Patriots fans all the way up to the 300 sections because that's all we could afford. And like that game, the Schobel was dominating that game. Like he had the interception on Brady. It was just everything was lining up. I was about to have a perfect drive back to Maine with a bunch of Patriots fans, and Leotis McKelvin just ruined every absolute dream. It was just very droughty, right? Like they had sort of the things you've explained, that 2-week period where they beat the Packers, then lost to the 2-win Raiders. Like that Patriots game had it all in the moment where you thought, oh, Trent Edwards is looking sharp. Like this might be the guy. This is our year. Schobel's looking like a top defensive end. Like this offense is moving the ball. And then something stupid happens and they fumble it out and give Tom Brady the ball. And then the droughtiest part of it, in my opinion, is that it came to the Patriots, because the drought isn't possible without those 2 losses to the Patriots every year for 17 years. If that didn't happen, you're not dealing with a drought. And some of these, coaches will talk about, if the Patriots weren't in the way, the drought ends a lot sooner. So I think for it being the Patriots and the context and the fact that I was there, I got to give it to that one.
Victoria, what game are you saying?
So for a variety of reasons, it's going to be 2010 Steelers loss for me. It's Ryan Fitzpatrick leads the Bills on a daring comeback. It ends up not working because of some goofy special teams shenanigans. And also Stevie Johnson drops a pass and then logs on Twitter, blames God, and then indirectly causes the first inklings of the Bills Mafia Twitter community. So to me, Steelers 2010 has it all. It is truly everything.
And see, David. I didn't know that Bills Mafia spawned from that tweet. I always assumed.
Me neither.
I thought it came up, the rumblings of Bills Mafia came up when they were about to sign Nick Barnett. And there was like that push.
Nick Barnett was one of the first players to acknowledge them.
The Mafia.
Interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, they trace their
origin story.
Which is like really, really something that it has its roots in such a moment.
Yeah, weird one.
David, what's your take on the droughtiest game?
I think it's gonna be that Patriots game, because that just especially because I watched it somewhat recently, and early on.
Why'd you do that?
Because I never watched it originally, because I was only 13 years old. I had a bedtime,
Right.
So I had to
nerd.
You're not a dedicated fan. You're not a real fan.
So I had to. So it wasn't until much later. I mentioned this earlier. I would watch the highlights of that for some freaking reason a lot, and then one day I was like, "Wonder if that game is on YouTube somewhere?" And it was, and it is. And I looked at it, I was like, God, this game is atrocious. How did the Bills So first of all, Brady is awful in that game for most of that game. For probably 2.5 quarters, he is not good in that game.
People in New England in Foxborough were booing him.
They were
asking for him to be benched in that game for week 1.
And there's and that's the season where Bill Belichick is mic'd up for the whole season.
Yeah.
And there's a great moment between him and Brady where Belichick's like, what the are you doing, man? And he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, you're missing Falk on that screen. He's like, he was and he's making all these excuses. Oh my god, this is brutal.
And the Bills lost to that.
Yeah.
To the bickering Pats. Vic Carucci, where are you at? But yeah, I'm also gonna go with Pats Bills 2009 week 1, just because it is. Again, all these games you could argue are the encapsulation of the drought, but this game in particular, with it is week 1 against the Patriots. Everyone's hopeful. Everyone thinks this might, or maybe not, but at least, in the second half of that game, you're thinking okay, maybe it's different. And then they find a way to lose. So I think that's going to be the representer of these specific games.
They then win. What they go I'm looking at them now. 1-4,
Mm-hmm. Including
after looking
Bills
so
3,
good
Browns
in a
6.
week 1. Oh, so droughty.
It's not good. So Dick Duran, he was the coach during that time, correct? Yes, he got fired during that year.
Was.
He got
fired
after
during
that
that year.
Yeah.
We're moving forward to the coaches section. This is the section where we go over the coaches of the drought. Bills had 6 coaches during the drought, which
Wade Phillips too, like kind of.
It's difficult to I'm not.
You can't
counting
technically have him
Tyrod.
in the drought, right?
Right. Yeah, I'm not counting Tyrod as a drought quarterback because
Tyrod's a drought quarterback.
Yes,
Tyrod,
he broke the drought. He broke it.
I don't know about
So
that.
I think you got to give Tyrod as a drought QB, but I think Wade started the drought.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So I don't know that he would count because he had a team in the playoffs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay. I'm totally Plus, I don't think Wade would win. Wade is cool.
Well, yeah.
Right.
Wade's a great coach. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good Twitter account.
Excellent Twitter account.
Which is all you need, really.
And was really
if you have a
screwed
Stevie
by
Johnson level Twitter.
Ownership totally meddled where they shouldn't have at the time with all that and the quarterback carousel. Like Wade kind of got screwed in Buffalo, and honestly, Buffalo didn't deserve him.
Reading back again, as I've said 8 times already, I was a child during the early 2000s.
Still a little bit. You're still a little bit.
A little bit. It seems like ownership kind of got in the way a lot. It seems like Ralph Wilson was always kind of messing things up a little bit.
Yeah.
Like with the hiring of Mark
Rest in
Levy.
peace, though.
Which rest in peace, but
Yeah,
of course.
We'll
talk about the Mark Levy hiring as GM when he was hired without a title, and they kind of publicly disagreed about what his title would be for a little bit.
Yep.
We'll get into all of that later. We have to start with Greg Williams. Greg 6Gs Williams.
Angry. Mad man.
Terrible. Garbage. Sick man.
Jeez. Victoria, you seem to have very strong opinions on Greg Williams, the what we are counting as the first coach of the drought. Victoria, what's wrong with Greg Williams?
Well, first of all, he's a very bad football coach. Terrible defensive coordinator involved in Bounty Gate. Maybe sneakily the worst drought season is, I believe, 2002, whatever year they went 3-13 and had to start Alex Van Pelt. 2001, okay. Whatever year they had to start Alex Van Pelt, like a billion games. Very bad. Ultimately, I don't think he lasted long enough in order to have, in order to really hang against some of the other coaches. But he was wretched. Also, his defense sucked.
My old roommate from this past year, and you can at him at Coach T Manus or at Coach T _ Manus. I can't quite remember. Somebody will find him. Loved this man. I've been friends with him since high school. We played football together. We've stayed in touch throughout college. We've lived together. I was a groomsman at his wedding. His true main toxic trait is that he is a Greg Williams stan to the end, to the absolute bitter end.
Yeah.
And I will never understand it, but he loves that. He loves him to death.
What?
A lot of
Greg Williams
coaches.
apparently the NFL loves him. He turned down a ton of coaching
ton
jobs.
of jobs.
Yeah.
Ton of jobs.
He didn't have to interview for him. He could have just
That's right.
Oh my god.
and he just didn't, right?
Right.
See, he's a giver, right? He just let everyone else get their shine, right? You got to respect Greg Williams for that.
My biggest beef with that Greg Williams and that stretch of teams was I think the drought didn't have to start in that time period when you look at the talent on that team compared to some of the names you guys brought up through the other drought teams. Like Drew Bledsoe was a good quarterback still. He went on to Dallas and still had good years after the Bills. And I think that Dallas made the playoffs in that stretch. I can't remember, but you had and if you're just talking about names, Travis Henry, who wasn't with the Bills for a long time, but was incredibly productive in a short time with the Bills. Obviously Bledsoe, you had Molds and Peerless Price. On the defensive side, you had London Fletcher, Antoine Winfield, Takeo Spikes, Laura Malloy, Pat Williams, Nate Clements, Aaron Schobel. You had pieces, and maybe they all weren't the high end pieces at their positions, but I think they were all at least above average when you're talking about some of these bigger names and guys that definitely could produce at the NFL at that time. And you just came up short every year. And to me, like sort of just being a middling team was okay during the drought when the pieces were also like below average and you just knew the team didn't have the pieces to make a run at the playoffs. But when that team really, I think, did and just fell short every time, that was some of the most frustrating years of the drought for me, because like in terms of like explosive offenses, I was becoming a teenager at the time, but man, Molds, Peerless Price, and Drew Bledsoe, like that was almost unstoppable in the NFL at the time, and they still couldn't manage more than 8 wins. Like that's pretty pathetic.
Yeah. I feel like if Kyle, David, and I were maybe a slightly different generation, Molds would probably be one of our specific players. But yeah, unfortunately, not quite old enough to really remember him all that much.
Right. Yeah, I'm the old guy here. I hate that.
I was a big Eric Molds guy. I was a big Eric Molds, Peerless Price. Again, I was 5 years old at this point, but you know, Eric Molds was a dude. And at least from what I remember, again, this was back when, as I said about Roscoe Parrish earlier, just fast, or you know, Eric Molds seemed to, you know, do cool things that other players didn't do. So he was, you know, cool in that sense, which I guess is still kind of how I pick my favorite players, them and Lafayette Pitts. But so
I will, a player on that team that, in my opinion, so like this comes up a lot when people ask questions on Twitter of the next Wall of Fame, who's going on the Wall of Fame next, and a player that I just mentioned. Marshawn. I don't know if Marshawn's on the Bills Wall of Fame, just for his personality, maybe. And that one run against Cincinnati.
For the video, for the Applebee's video.
For the Applebee's video.
Oh, we're going to get there.
Yeah. That's probably the first rumblings of the Mafia, and we just don't even know it, the origin of the Mafia. Aaron Schobel, I don't think gets his flowers enough for being a really all-time Buffalo Bill. He's second in sacks to the best player to ever sack quarterbacks in the entire NFL, Bruce Smith. Like that's pretty substantial to be second there. And he cut his career short, right? Like I think he could even be higher up on that list and have another maybe 10, 15, 20 sacks added to that. And so I think he's a guy that needs to be in consideration when we're talking about, people bring up Fred Jackson, which I don't think is even in consideration, or some of these other drought guys that are more modern. We can fight about that. I'm ready to fight about Fred. But I think Aaron Schobel at least needs to be in that conversation. Since we were in this era of Bills, I wanted to give him his flowers for a second.
Aaron Schobel, more sacks than Javon Curse. Just
crazy, right?
Aaron
Schobel.
Schobel.
Let you guys sit with that.
Aaron Schobel, also still the player that has sacked Tom Brady the most times.
Yeah.
Yes.
14
and handsome.
Sacks against
and Aaron
Brady.
Schobel was a handsome dude.
Was he George Wilson handsome or no?
No,
different.
Absolutely not.
Different.
Different kind of handsome.
Mike Mularkey, huh?
Mike Mularkey.
What a dud.
2004. They go 9-7, narrowly miss out on the playoffs. They just ran into that buzzsaw Steelers team there in week 7, which of course that's why they lose. Miss out on the playoffs. 2005, they go 5-11. After that season, that kind of just foreshadowed this a bit. The Bills fire their president / general manager, Tom, was it Donahue? How did you pronounce
Donahoe.
Yeah. Donahoe. Fire him, replace him in some sense with Marv Levy, which again, they couldn't agree on a title until roughly a week after Marv Levy was hired. And then by that point, Mike Mularkey had tendered his resignation, citing that he did not like the direction of the team. He didn't like the direction ownership was taking the team. So Mike Mularkey, 2 seasons, one of which was above 500, and then 5-11. Then he's like, "I'm out. I don't want the 80-year-old GM, telling me what to do."
Kelly Holcomb played 8 games in that 2005 season.
God, he was good, right? He
4-4.
Hey, Kelly Holcomb has a claim to fame in almost outdueling Tommy Maddox in a 2002 wildcard game against the Steelers when he was on the Browns, and Bruce Arians was his offensive coordinator. And if you've ever watched that game, all Bruce Arians is calling is out and up. I'm not
out and up till the end with that guy.
I think there's like 5 or 6 double moves that the Browns hit in that game, and At no point did the Steelers think like, oh, maybe we should just like stop biting on this. They just kept going to it. It's hilarious. It's hilarious watching like 30 plus points being scored by Tommy Maddox and Kelly Holcomb in the same game.
Oh dear.
QB wins.
Absolutely. QB wins. Mike Mularkey was bad, but he wasn't bad in an overly interesting way, in my opinion.
I'm gonna say like largely inconsequential.
Which like has kind of followed him throughout his whole career, right? Like that when he was the head coach in the Jags in Jacksonville, like they were 2-14 and nobody cared about them. They were atrocious, a total train wreck. Nobody cared about them.
Nope.
And then he goes to Tennessee, waits for Ken Wisenhunt to get fired, takes over as the interim head coach, gets hired as the full-time head coach, goes to the playoffs, I think multiple times, wins a playoff game, and then like after losing in the divisional round, the ownership was like, hey, you need to, like, we appreciate what you've done, but you need to make some changes to your coaching staff. And he was like, no, I'm not doing that. And they're like, well, you have to. And he was like, all right, well, then I'm just going to quit.
Yep.
That's apparently what happened in Buffalo as well. Is
My God.
Ralph Wilson was like, hey, can you make a few changes? And he did, and then he quit. And then he did it, and then he said, I'm out.
That's
Mike Mularkey. Oh God, Mike Mularkey's never like stuck around anywhere as a coach for like longer than so he did 2 years in Buffalo, 1 year in Jacksonville, 2.5 with Tennessee. He's someone who stays where he needs to be exactly he does not overstay his welcome. He won a playoff game and then got fired. Yeah. That's who we're dealing with here. It's unbelievable.
That 04 season is, again, same thing that we were just saying about Greg Williams. That team had talent, right? And then it's so droughty, though. A bye week in week 3. That's
gross.
Terrible, right? But they were
started
1-5. Yeah, 1-5 at one point, but then they go on a run starting week 10 or starting week 11, and they rattle off a bunch of wins and then lose to Steelers to get into the play. Like, talk about the graphic that is so reminding of being in the drought is that in the hunt, right? Like this is that in the hunt season where they go on a run, they get all of Buffalo and all of our fans excited, like, hey, we're coming back to the playoffs, this is it, and then just fart it out and suck at the end of the season, let us all down, which just became like, I feel like that was really a defining moment of like, you've been in the drought now for a couple of years, your team's not what they used to be, you're starting to really notice that, but then they give you a little bit of hope and they let you down. That was like the first scar tissue, that Steelers game of like, just when they drag you back in, they get you all excited and they let you down. I felt like that was the first really like, man, we were right there on the cusp of being a playoff team and just a total letdown. The in the hunt graphic goes away and you're back to being out of the playoffs.
Mike Mularkey is replaced by Dick Geron.
Yay! It got a lot better.
Who posts not 1, not 2, but 3 consecutive 7 and 9 seasons.
Consistency matters.
Consistency, right? Yeah, got to keep a consistent voice in the
room. Impressive. Honestly impressive.
It is. It's something else. I won't say impressive. I'll say it's something else, but in a tone in which you could think that I'm being, complimentary there. And then in 2009, he goes 3-6 before getting fired and replaced on an interim basis by Perry Fewell, who I remember as a kid when the Bills didn't make Perry Fewell the full-time head coach after that. I was livid. I was like, "What are you doing, you idiots?" Which, I mean, they replaced him with Chan Gailey, who, Aaron, you'll get into momentarily, your Chan Gailey stuff. But, Dick Geron, it's hard to be mad at Dick Geron. It really is.
I disagree.
I don't know about that. I don't really know about that.
I was excited when they hired Dick Geron. I remember my brother's a Bears fan, and so he had pretty good things to say about Dick Geron. I don't think he thought what happened in Chicago was anything to do with Dick Geron because they were also sort of an average team at the time. But I remember being excited for him. His personality, I think, hurt him in how average the team was and how blah things were. And then he was also pretty blah. I think that made it a lot worse. But
yeah,
let's face the facts. Like, he had to deal with a maybe GM of Marv Levy, who his process of GMing was like, let's get really nice guys. and we're gonna have and not like
Fred
culture.
Jackson.
So like people took when Sean McDermott came in and they heard culture and like
Mhm.
those things, they associated it to the Marv Levy style of like, oh, we're just gonna get good people that don't have any issues at all, and these are just nice guys, and we're gonna get the nice guys, and that's what Marv would try doing it, and it totally was terrible and it backfired. And then he had to transition to Russ Brandon as a GM. Somebody made Russ Brandon a GM of an NFL football team, and Dick Duran had to deal with that. So I don't know that what happened in his reign was all a Dick Duran problem, but his personality didn't help buffer it.
There's very like clear, distinguishable things that Dick Duran did that are just like quintessential Dick Duran, like just like the insistent, that's like ultra conservative coaching approach, especially in like in-game decision making, just like let's punt. let's just go and punt. Let's kick a field goal at the 1 yard line. Let's just,
Not totally uncommon in 08.
It definitely was not.
More
It definitely wasn't.
uncommon
It's
now.
just that like,
Yeah.
but that like that in itself is just sort of like part of the problem, right? Is that like he is in so many ways very unique, but man, he is so indistinguishable from so many other head coaches at that time. If you could capture like how NFL head coaches generally approached games, like just say Dick Duran, and that's like at the time that's about right.
We had a lot of Doug Marone.
Oh,
did
Lord.
quite a bit of that. Even Rex Ryan,
Dougie.
who was supposed to be not conservative, right? Like his teams punted at all the wrong times.
Rex Ryan's conservative.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Well,
Lord.
different. Different.
Oh Lord. I will like Dick Duran is like Walmart brand Jeff Fisher. My man is Kirkland Fisher. He will get any team to exactly 7-9, and that's it. Like these are honestly terrible rosters, and the fact that he got some of these rosters to 7-9 kind of impressive, but also he was there. He was elevating nothing. He was setting a floor slightly higher than maybe the average coach would, but other than that,
that might be
nothing.
worse if you're in a drought to
Absolutely.
be mediocre
Yep.
is way worse than to just be bad for a couple of years.
Yeah.
That man had J.P. Lossman and Trent Edwards as his quarterbacks.
Oh dear.
And it just never ever went anywhere with those, and like understandably so, because J.P. Lossman was atrocious. I actually asked my dad last night because I told him we were doing this, and I was like, "What's the one thing you would say is emblematic of like the drought era?" And he was like, "Probably J.P. Lossman."
Yeah.
What I'll say about a guy like JP though is I think his skill set would apply much more to today's NFL than it did to the NFL of his time. If you could get him with a good system and a good coach, he had that mold before that mold was the thing of being mobile.
Send
being
that man to Kyle Shanahan.
Like, put a deep ball out there. Like he had an impressive the ball came off that dude's arm like crazy. They didn't have a lot of talent. The NFL didn't know how to work with a guy that could play out of structure.
Yeah. And he was also mobile too. Like he could, that dude could run.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
I feel like we're kind of doing the Lossman tangent now. To me, the ultimate JP Lossman moment is the game against the Texans where he is throwing nukes to Lee Evans all day. He has like
Madden.
Oh, it was so good. JP is at least fun. When we talk about Trent Edwards, we will talk about a quarterback who is equal and oppositely bad in every way. But yeah, Dick Duran.
Chan Gailey replaced Dick Duran. They clean house after 2009. Bring in Buddy Nix as GM, and then also Chan Gailey. Chan Gailey has 3 years in charge. 2010 going 4-12, 2011 6-10, 2012 6-10. He's fired after 2012. Aaron, you didn't like this move. At least
I did not like Chan Gailey being fired. I thought out of the drought teams, I think he had the worst of the rosters of the drought teams. I think Buddy Nix had no business. Also, we're going 3 straight in a row that had no business being NFL GMs.
We're gonna get to that.
Buddy Nix was a terrible GM, and we found the answer to getting your team out of that situation and being a consistent winner is having GM and coach in lockstep sharing a vision. Like I think that's pretty clear that that's how you do it. I had lined up like how the drought went between coaches and GMs and those like relationships overlapping and things like that. And past regimes, quarterbacks going with new coaches, and like they never just lined up to where you need it. And I really think that ultimately hurt Chan Gailey and is a lack of he takes some responsibility in this, and that he was never able to get a decent defensive coordinator in there to do anything whatsoever. So that's a little bit on him. But what he did do, I think, was get more out of less than any of the Bills coaches in that drought period. Like Ryan Fitzpatrick's not a starting NFL quarterback. He's, as much as fun as he is and how great of a personality he is, he's always been this guy's at the bottom of that starting list and probably the best backup in the league. He's always kind of hung out right there, and he made it a fun offense for a few years with a Fred Jackson, who probably had no business with the type of production that he had in the NFL. With, the receivers of these teams is pretty mind-boggling when you see who was lined up for passes for Fitzpatrick.
All undrafted free agents.
Undrafted and 7th-round picks. That was the Chan Gailey offense.
Your Donald Joneses of the world, your Roscoe, which again, fun drought dudes. Naaman Roosevelt got run for a little while. Like
Naaman Roosevelt.
David Nelson was a legit slot receiver for those Chan Gailey teams.
Yes, and most of these guys probably should have been practice squad NFL players, or
just not on the NFL, not on an NFL roster at all.
No,
most of these guys should not have been on these teams at all. Yeah. And he managed to make a lot. Scott Chandler, was somebody.
He's a legend now. They call him a legend. Scott Chandler.
Right.
Chan Gailey made Scott Chandler a legend. Can you believe that?
He pulled him off, I think, the Cowboys practice squad at the end of the 2010 season. I was like, hey, stick around for the whole offseason. And then he turned him into a touchdown machine.
I did think, even after a 6-10, I thought if given another year with that core and how tight of a group that was another thing, is they all played for Chan. When Chan left Buffalo, he went out crying. He was not happy with the results. He cared about this team, where you just got out of Greg Williams, Mike Mularkey, Dick Drawn. None of these guys have decent personalities. They're all two of them were kind of jerks. The other one's just a dud. And you had this guy that cared, and he was emotional, and he wanted to be in Buffalo, and he wanted success for Buffalo. And I thought he was a lot closer than he was. And the fact that what happens, obviously hindsight is 2020, but then you go to freaking Doug Marrone. That was where I would have just rather have run it out with Chan for a couple more years than what they ended up doing.
I don't think Chan would have ever won a Super Bowl or anything, but I think for the teams that were there, he did a much better job, especially because Chan was plan Z for that Bills team, because they couldn't get anyone to take the job. Partially because, Ralph Wilson is was difficult to work with. Cheap also. They couldn't get anyone, and they kind of dragged Chan Gailey out of semi-retirement. And he ended up having he made the Bills were in 2011 kind of on the forefront of the early NFL spread revolution. They were out here running pistol and and doing all this wild stuff. So I feel like
I watched that 2011 Patriots win in week 3. And they opened that game in 20 personnel in empty, which is just bizarre. Using Fred Jackson and CJ Spiller in empty formation is just that's some weird, wild shit. That's pretty cool. Yeah. But it's just he made a lot out of very, very little. And on that note, we're gonna take a little step into one of the most bizarre, horrendous draft classes I have ever seen in my goddamn life.
Hell yeah.
So, the 2010 Buffalo Bills draft class. Who can name some of these picks? Okay.
Terrell Troop was in that, right?
Yeah, I was about to say.
Ed Wang.
Ed Wang.
He was the first person that blocked me on Twitter.
Hell yeah.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Alex Carrington is there.
Yes,
that's
he is.
The Spiller year.
Marcus Easley is there.
Bills definitely needed another running back that year.
So, first round pick. You have Fred Jackson, who just ran for 1,000 yards in 2009. You have Marshawn Lynch, who obviously doesn't want to be there.
Beast mode.
So you pick CJ Spiller, who is fast. and can catch the ball, but like does not want any sort of contact whatsoever, like at all.
It just wants to bounce to the sidelines every
Yes.
opportunity.
And then
He was very good at that.
because they were transitioning to a 3-4 defense, and teams were so obsessed with like base defense and wanting the right personnel for that base defense, they spent pretty much the rest of the draft, or at least a pretty large majority of it, trying to get guys to fit that defense. So they draft Terrell Troop to be the nose tackle. He was he was from Central Florida. They went in the 3rd round to Alex
they trade up
Carrington.
for him too? I think
Did they trade up for Terrell Troop?
They did.
Not sure.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
God. I don't want to think about that. We're gonna pretend they didn't do that. And then in the 3rd round, they take Alex Carrington, who like ended up being okay. But
got in
just
trouble
like,
a couple times, right?
Yeah, there was something. There was something recent with him.
He had like a gun charge when he was young.
Yeah,
in the Bills
it was. He's kind of all over the place. He was from Arkansas State. In the 4th round, they take Marcus Easley, who ended up being like a really good gunner for the Bills on special teams.
Marcus Easley rocks.
Yeah.
Sure.
And he also had like what, an 80-yard touchdown in London against the Jaguars? Yeah.
Yep.
And then they took Ed Wang, who did nothing.
He got a USA Today article written about him for being
right.
the first Chinese American NFL player, I think.
Good. There you go, Ed Wang. Good for you.
Congratulations.
And then Arthur Motes from James Madison.
I love Arthur Motes.
Arthur Motes was like Arthur Motes might be the best draft pick of this whole
He
group.
probably had the best career out of that whole class.
He got a second contract with a different team.
He played pretty well with the Steelers.
He did.
Too,
like he was not, and he basically ended Brett Favre's career.
True. Don't cross the moats.
Thank you for that, Arthur.
Smashed him, and then he tried playing in that Monday Night Football game against the Bears, and he got smacked again early on. And you're just like, nope, that's it. So good for you, Arthur Motes. Arthur Motes clearly said, "My God," to end Brett Favre's career.
Arthur Motes was the first guest on my first ever show way back in like 2011. I did a YouTube show with Pierre Kingpin from Buffalo Fanatics. He and I had a show on YouTube, and we got Ed Wang. That was like our first. We were like, "Oh my God, we're talking to a Bills player." It was a big get, or not Ed Wang. We got Arthur Motes. Sorry, and he was awesome. He came on and he was great.
He's always been a very cool guy. We got Danny Batten up next, right?
Danny Batten, who went to South Dakota State,
right?
Go Jackets. And I think the only play that I remember Danny Batten ever making was in that week 2 game in 2011 against the Raiders when they were starting that comeback, and he recovered a fumble. That's it. That's all I remember of Danny Batten.
Your memory's better than mine.
I think I remember a very crucial roughing the passer penalty, and that's it. That's all I got.
Good for him.
Good
for him, honestly. And then they drafted Levi Brown, the quarterback from Troy, who did nothing. Hold on. He played 1 game.
Yeah,
he had 2 completions and an interception.
Yep,
good for him.
No,
good for Levi Brown.
Yeah,
got in an NFL game.
No Thaddeus Lewis.
Good for him. And then Kyle Callaway, who I think didn't even make it to training camp.
Yeah. By the way, Kyle Callaway has since passed away. R.I.P.
Oh,
not a joke.
I did not know
a joke.
that.
Unfortunate. Yeah.
Yeah. I would have brought that up.
Sorry. It was a very unfortunate draft class. A very strange set of drafts. I think the next year was
many small schools. Like UCF at the time was not the powerhouse that it is now. No. Arkansas State is like nothing. UConn is not a football powerhouse. South Dakota State.
It had like a brief period of time.
Yeah. James Madison. Like, it's like, why is your draft class so filled with a bunch of this? Like, why is this your priority here?
You only have one good scout. Yeah, I mean, that is one of the issues with this Changeli era is Buddy Nix and these drafts that they had. Obviously, Marcel Darius was not a terrible pick on paper, and I think everybody was
like, kind of,
he had some good college, he had some good years. But when you look at that draft as a whole, and that's the guy you got, and then you see the careers of the guys around, like it's hard to look in hindsight. And that's a draft that Kelvin Shepard was the 3rd round pick, and granted that turned into Jerry Hughes, but man, what a dud of a pick if you keep that.
Doug Whaley saving a Buddy Nix selection there.
He did. Aaron Williams wasn't a bad pick, but that one took a while.
Yeah, they had to switch him to safety to make that really work.
And he still was not as good as Bills fans want to believe in hindsight. Like he was fine. He was he
pretty
loved
good
the team. He played pretty well at safety, but he wasn't like I hear people talking about him as one of these guys that could be on the Wall of Fame, and I think that's just crazy. That's a crazy talk.
Oh dear God.
Chris Harrison.
Yeah,
was in this draft.
He was kind of like a swing O-line. I feel like did he get a second contract when
I don't think
the O-line coach went to the Chargers?
That might be the case.
He did get a contract with the Chargers.
Yeah.
I'm fairly
I'm 90% sure Joe D'Alessandris went to the Chargers, and then I guess Chris Harrison was like one of his guys.
Yeah.
The last pick in that draft was, I don't know if you guys remember, Mike Jasper.
Yeah.
I'm
pretty Mike Jasper.
Mike Jasper.
Do you remember
I'm pretty sure he's a coach.
Wasn't he huge?
Gigantic.
Massive.
He was like before viral videos were like a thing. He had like a viral workout where he was just like an athletic freak. He was like doing flips or something at his size, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, this guy's gonna unlock. He's gonna be a beast." And people were like building him on Madden and destroying it on Madden and be like, "See, I told you so."
Right. Yeah.
He is currently the head coach of his alma mater, Bethel, Tennessee. Good for Mike Jasper.
Good for him.
Yeah. Chris Hairston, by the way. Chris Hairston was the pick they got for Marshawn Lynch. Just so everyone knows.
Oh, geez.
Thanks for that. You're just bringing up all the fun stuff.
we have to get through the coaches so we can get into the moments. Does anyone have any crazy things to say about Doug Marrone or Rex Ryan, or can we crown Jerron or Gailey as the droughtiest coach in movie?
The only thing I'll say about Marrone is that guy's a dick. He
sucks.
I was at a Chamber of Commerce happy hour down on Main Street, and that jerk walked through. I was a season ticket holder at the time. There's like 4 of us, and he walks through. He's going for dinner, and we're just like there, and we're like, "Hey, coach," and that jerk just like looked at us, scowled, and was just like, "Leave us alone," and walked out back. It's like, wow, you're the head coach of the Buffalo Bills. Everyone would love you if you were a decent human being, even if you're going to be average. And he couldn't even do that. He couldn't even be like a decent person.
Just like relax.
I've never heard a single good word about him personally.
No.
So yeah,
there's people in Jacksonville since he went there that like speak well enough of him where they're like,
but I've been through Jacksonville, man. That place is a dump. They don't know what they're talking about.
You're not wrong.
Oh dear. How about Rex Ryan, huh?
How about that clown?
I didn't hate Rex as much as everyone else. I think nepotism destroyed his stay here. Once he brought on his brother, everything just went to shit. The defense went to shit.
Yeah.
If he doesn't do that, I think he had teams and talent and coached them up enough where they could have won and broke the drought in that period of time.
He had very, very talented teams and went 8-8 with them. That he was just a god awful coach.
But they didn't have a quarterback.
Well, they had Tyrod.
They didn't have a quarterback. I mean, Tyrod, I think, is same as what we're talking about Ryan Fitzpatrick, where you're talking about a guy that's bottom tier NFL starter, maybe, but probably the best backup.
I don't disagree with that, but also like he also had Greg Roman, who like got the most out of Tyrod more than any other coach, and like after week 2 of the 2016 season, where that offense scored 30 points. On Thursday Night Football, he's like, we'll just fire Greg Roman to save my own ass.
Greg Roman does wear out his welcome at places.
He does, and I'm not going to sit here and say that Greg Roman is like some like uber genius offensive coordinator or anything, but like
he did a good job here. You're right.
He did a good job here, and he was not the reason that those teams were bad. Like those teams were bad because those defenses sucked, and they kept getting billion penalties for every game.
Anthony Lynn wasn't a bad offensive coordinator though, so I didn't hate the transition.
Yeah. Tyrod was like good enough to get them into the playoffs for sure in those 2 years. Like 2015 Tyrod, probably like a top 15 quarterback in the league.
Good enough to win with, sure.
Absolutely. There are some fun names on those teams.
Was incredible.
Yeah. Shady. Yeah. Mike Gillislee out here to the rock.
Mike Gillislee.
Carlos Williams? Come on.
He was a player, yeah. He was on the team.
He had a really good season.
Maybe the best crazy rookie out of nowhere
Yeah.
season I can remember.
And then he never played ever again.
Oh, dear.
Who's the droughtiest coach? Is it Chan or is it Dick?
No, it's got to be Dick.
depends what you're defining droughty as. Just like,
Yeah.
like, are we talking like a guy that we hate and associate with the drought, or like the best coach of the drought?
Most drought.
Most drought. So like sad, but also
That's
good
Dick
moments. Dick
Indicative
Gotta
of
be
the
Dick.
drought.
Yes.
It's got to be.
It's like Dick Duran just kept them in that mediocre, not bad enough to like really go for anything exciting in the draft, but never good enough to do anything.
And
in
I
the
think
regular season. And just
it's probably like the low arc of the drought. Like
yeah,
you're
Definitely.
in it at that
Mhm.
point. You are now officially a drought team, and it's not getting better, and the talent isn't getting better, and like there's no personality associated to the team to give you the
Yeah.
hope. Like at least, like we said, Chan brought. Even though the team's results weren't good, there was a personality to that team. There was excitement about that team. I think even the Marone, he didn't have personality, but that team did. And people saw things trending up at least. And obviously,
and like
got a lot
Marone
of
brought in
excitement,
good coaches. Like he
Yes.
brought in Aaron Cromer, he brought
For
in
sure.
Mike Pettin, and then replaced him with Jim Schwartz. Like he brought in
Yeah.
good coaches.
for sure.
Rookie
And
versus
you,
rookie.
but yeah, I think Duran was like the ultimate, like that we're at the
Yeah.
bottom of the drought now, and this sucks.
Absolutely. Oh gosh.
We're moving on to everyone's favorite part, the players of the drought.
Yes.
Aaron,
kinda
you're more than
touched on all the
welcome to stick
quarterbacks
around
already.
if you'd like to.
I can stick around for a minute, and then I'm going to go say goodnight to my little guys. They're getting ready for bed here in a minute, so you got me for a little bit longer.
All right, we'll talk about Fred Jackson because
Okay.
we've all mentioned Fred Jackson at various points of this podcast. Fred Jackson, a productive running back, got more production out of the NFL Europa running back than they should have probably out of the, where did he go?
Europa.
Colgate College or whatever.
Co
College, that's what it
Co
was.
College.
Marv Levy's college. Fred Jackson, productive player. Bills fans loved him. Part of me kind of resents Fred Jackson because he was just taking targets, or not targets, taking snaps away from much better running backs who could have been much more productive had they not had to split snaps with Fred Jackson.
Welcome to the dark side, Kyle.
Which running backs are you talking about? I agree with you.
Marshawn Lynch. I'm talking about CJ Spiller.
CJ Spiller was not a better running back than Fred Jackson.
Oh, CJ Spiller's 2012 is maybe the best Bills running back season of the century. CJ Spiller's
Travis Henry's like 2002 season.
Okay.
Either of LaShawn McCoy's like 2015, 2016 years.
He was really good. CJ Spiller's one single year was awesome.
He was, but I think it was more of the league wasn't sure who CJ Spiller was at that point, and it was also a mix of that Chan Gailey offense and Chan getting him the ball in space and allowing it. Because you saw when CJ Spiller went to the Saints, I think that proved to me he went to Sean Payton, and one of the most brilliant offensive minds in the game at the time, and did squat. Like he just could not. He had no vision. No ability to do anything other than the one trick, which was speed, straight line speed. And Chan was the only guy that ever unlocked it for that one moment in time. I agree with you. Fantastic season, but Fred Jackson didn't like limit his touches.
Speaking of Fred Jackson, if nobody knows about or has seen the roast of Fred Jackson, it is on YouTube. And let me tell you something. It is something else. If you want something to do to fall asleep to in the evening, and just look up Fred Jackson roast and have a good time.
My history with the roast of Fred Jackson is I was once the managing editor of a website that Victoria and Aaron worked for in various capacities back in the day. So the Fred Jackson roast happened in like January or February. And my boss sent me the YouTube link in like May or June and was like, hey, I just found this on YouTube. Can you write an article about it? And I was like, this happened in January.
Oh my God.
And he was like, yeah, I don't think a lot of people have seen it. And I was like, okay, sure. Like you're paying me to, right. You're paying me to write this. Yeah. So sure, I will write this article about this 6-month-old video. But okay. So yeah, the roast of Fred Jackson is pretty good, which is what this podcast is about to turn into, the roast of Fred Jackson.
Yes, let's go.
Fine player, but I just feel like, Marshawn Lynch would have been on the Wall of Fame had Fred Jackson not been a Bill. Victoria.
There is no other team in the NFL in which Fred Jackson would have become such a beloved player. Like there is no other team that harbored mediocrity for as long as it did. And he had like emotionally, I love Fred Jackson because he was cool and fun and he's a very nice man. But like objectively looking at it, to me, he might be the most Droughty player specifically because he was aggressively mid and we like hung on.
And we love him for it.
Yep. Just like we are celebrating this perfect 81 overall Madden player forever.
He's 78 at max.
I think, I think that's super well put. This is the argument I have all the time. My mentions are full of whenever people are talking about Wall of Fame, constant full of Fred Jackson. And my take for years is that's not even close. That he's not even close to a Wall of Fame caliber.
You got to put guys like Aaron Schobel and
Eric
Kyle
Molds,
Williams,
Ruben Brown.
Molds.
There's a bunch of dudes. Fred Jackson's not that. I love Fred. I have a jersey in my closet, Fred Jackson jersey hanging up in my closet. That's the jersey my wife wears is a Fred Jackson. We in the Quinn house, we are fans and love Fred Jackson, but that doesn't mean that he was a great football player. He came along in a time, again, after this Drought era where it was just down in the dumps, and you finally had guys that seemed to want to be in Buffalo, right? Like they had to lure Chan Gailey to come to Buffalo, which wasn't a big coaching hire, but we had to get somebody. Nobody wanted to be in Buffalo. And then finally you get Fred, who's like happy and loves Buffalo, and then fits. And it started to kind of trickle. Aaron Williams starts to love Buffalo. And so I think it gave us fans something to cling to where like, hey, no one wants to be here. We got to work hard to get anyone or overpay for all those guys. But we got this guy who's like kind of productive, hard hat, shows up, does his work. He's just like the perfect guy at the perfect time. But that doesn't make him a great player. Dude, I got roasted. I don't think I've ever been unfollowed and blocked it more than when Fred went to the Seahawks. And I was like, good. Like they needed to move on from this guy like 2 to 3 years ago. And people were like, how dare you jerk? Like we're gonna cancel you from the internet.
There was a year when Boobie Dixon was a more valuable running back than Fred Jackson. So that's Oof.
Now, Kyle, I'm gonna kick that to you. Do you think without Fred Jackson in Buffalo, do you think Marshawn Lynch stays? Because I love Marshawn Lynch, but I don't think he wanted anything to do with being in Buffalo. No matter what,
he absolutely wanted out. Which you can't blame him, especially at that time and just all the circumstances.
I mean, look at the uniform you're wearing. Imagine having to suit up in that thing every week.
Disgusting.
A talking point I was going to bring up is: would these uniforms be more well remembered had the team been competent? But the answer is still no. The answer is it doesn't matter. They were just ugly.
Nothing good came from sports designers in the 2000s at all. No good uniforms. Correct. They're all like dark tones, modern style. They were all trash, but across all sports. But the Bills did it the worst. I think out of everyone.
Navy blue should be abolished from sports uniforms.
It's so gross.
And like we are definitely
except for Michigan.
That. Michigan isn't quite
in Notre Dame. Michigan, Notre Dame, I feel like they can keep
but even then those teams have had those colors forever, and then the Bills switched to navy blue from their like pretty good 90s jerseys. Anyway,
and that light blue thing, what's that weird sky blue
it's terrible. The piping is just wretched.
This is just
the white ones were even worse. The white ones are
the multiple shades of blue.
It's so bizarre.
What are we doing here? Oh dear God!
This is graphic design. This was someone's life's work. Was this uniform?
And it sucks.
They ruined Marshawn Lynch for us. Marshawn didn't want to be here. They ruined it.
Oh dear God!
Marshawn didn't like the jersey. Didn't Marshawn think that Buffalo was in New York City, or is that just a rumor?
Good for him.
I do.
Good for him.
I've said this story before. Marshawn Lynch walked into the place where I played roller hockey as a child, Frank Young Sports Arena, and said that he wanted to ice skate, which they do not have. They do not have an ice rink at Frank Young Sports Arena. But I love Marshawn Lynch.
Love him. He's the best.
He was the best. And like I said, I've said this again on a past episode of this podcast. The Bills brought Marshawn Lynch back to lead the charge last season, and again Fred Jackson was there, and he was the one who actually said come on Bills fans, get on your feet. And it's like, you have beast mode right there. and you're giving the mic to Fred Jackson. This is atrocious.
Yeah. I feel like we have put Fred Jackson deep in the ground at this point.
While propping up Marshawn Lynch too.
I know.
I like that.
Should we talk about good football players?
We should. Aaron, if you need to head out, that is, we will relieve you of your fatherly duties.
All right, yeah, let me get out of here. I could talk Drought all night, I guess.
I know.
Gross.
Thanks
for having me.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for coming on.
All right, take care.
All right. So what do you want to talk about, the quarterbacks or George Wilson? Because you said good football players.
I kind of feel like we've talked enough about the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
We kind of hit on all. We kind of hit the hits with the quarterbacks. Bledsoe, Edwards, Lossman. They're good there.
Kyle, who are we talking about?
We could. You know what? Why don't we go silliest to best? Let's talk about Mormon and Ryan Lindell. First of all, as Bill's Twitter's foremost special teams expert and the only Matt Ariza hater known to man.
Oh, gross.
I know. Brian, okay, I think analytics in football are frequently bad or misused or flawed. Puntalytics, I completely think are more valid. The Puntalytics love Brian Mormon. They think he's like a top 10 punter of the century. He was very good. Granted, again, it's only on a terrible team in which Brian Mormon would ever be as beloved as he was. Yeah. But he was a genuinely incredible punter. Lindell much more mid, but still solid.
Yeah. He spelled his name with an I, and I just can't get behind that.
Yeah.
The best Brian Mormon moment for me is when Lindell hit the game winner in that 2011 Week 3 game. And his immediate first response was to basically hump him directly in his face, which
hell yes.
I understand, but
show the boys some love. My favorite moments for him are the 2 touchdown passes he threw each to Ryan Denny.
Yeah, that's right.
Fake field goals. He threw multiple touchdown passes to Ryan Denny. That dude could scoot also.
Bobby April, special teams aficionado, fake special teams guru, just knew exactly how to get Brian Mormon his touchdowns.
Yeah. Oh dear God.
Brian Mormon also got laid out in the Pro Bowl.
That's right.
Is a moment. It's an all-time moment.
Absolutely.
Is there much else to say about Brian Mormon and
No,
Ryan
we're good.
Absolutely not.
We're good.
Absolutely not.
I think Brian Mormon might own a restaurant here or something. He might be in on Sear with Fred Jackson. Again, which is just more Fred Jackson that he owns a damn restaurant here now. I don't even dislike Fred Jackson. It's just ridiculous.
He was one of my favorite players.
Stevie Johnson. I want to talk about Stevie Johnson because this dude was sick. Stevie Johnson was an incredible wide receiver. Jarrell Revis was on the Pat McAfee show last week, and he listed the top 3 receivers that he found the most difficult to defend, and he did not list Stevie Johnson. And I was like, "You are a liar, Jarrell Revis.
Absolute liar."
Everything suggests differently that you had some difficulties covering Stevie Johnson. Again, what was he, 6th, 7th round pick out of Kentucky or whatever?
7th round pick.
Always trust the cool guy from Kentucky. Always trust the guy from Kentucky. This is how I know Brian Dable will succeed, is because he drafted Wan'Dale Robinson.
Yep, drafted Wan'Dale,
who is the new cool guy from Kentucky.
Sure, it's a very good point. Here's what one of my favorite Stevie Johnson games, and it's not for the reason you think it is that 2012 Jets game where he is abusing Revis multiple times, and then on the touchdown that he scores in that game, if you watch it, Stevie Johnson was known for just doing bizarre stuff in his route, just doing all these different head fakes and shifts and not making every route look the same and all that. On this route, he didn't do any of that. He just went straight inside. And you could see Revis was anticipating some sort of crazy move or something. And he was just like, nope, I'm just going to immediately slant inside and catch a touchdown. And Revis, being the super athlete that he is, still manages to get there to at least try to contest the catch a little bit. But it was that Stevie Johnson to me is the player that in a way sort of opened my eyes to the total differences that you can get in route running
Mhm.
and how
Yeah.
important that can be for a player that does not have a whole lot of athletic ability. And just like this is a way to win in the NFL. And he's
Yeah.
one of my favorite players. He's awesome.
If the Patriots had ever gotten Stevie Johnson, I know that he would have had like 1,500-yard seasons for that team.
Mhm.
If you put 25-year-old Stevie Johnson on the current San Francisco 49ers, again, I'm going back to the Niners. If you put him in a, like, he could be Debo level impact on a game. Truly believe that, especially in a modern Shanahan offense. I feel like his impact would be crazy. Like, he was, because he is drafted into the early modern spread revolution of the NFL circa 2010, and like doesn't really suit his skill set all that much, to be honest. But I feel like nowadays definitely would have been awesome. Also, just all of the iconic T-shirts and celebrations. Blaming God for dropping a touchdown.
Yeah.
If he
The
were
Why So
drafted-
Serious game where he's playing against Ocho Cinco and T.O. when they're calling themselves Batman and Robin, and he got the that's a great game. That's another.
It's incredible. If he came in 8 to 10 years later, I would hate him because all the football nerds would be posting his route running and his highlights every week, and I'd be like, enough already. This is ridiculous. But that was him. He was sick. Again, he used basketball, stuff in his routes, the basketball movements. That's how he kind of diversified himself from the rest of the wide receivers, how they were running their routes. I mean, Stevie Johnson was out here playing basketball on the football field, and that's why he was so incredible. Again, I think he had like 3 straight 1,000-yard receiving seasons with no quarterback whatsoever. An incredible player who didn't get his flowers nationally, unfortunately. But if we have nothing else to say about Stevie, I think we have to move on to Kyle Williams. A quick Kyle Williams, because I do want to get to some of these moments that we have to talk about because we have 20 minutes left.
Kyle Williams was really good for a long time. Like, he was a rock solid, especially early in his career when he was playing one tech. Just a crazy valuable player to have on the inside. Obviously, I think he stuck around long enough that his impact sort of diminished, and we forget how dominant he was during like 2010 to 2014. It was just incredible.
The fact that this dude who is 6'1", like 310-ish, right? Like, that they made him play nose tackle and that he was still like a Pro Bowl nose tackle in a 3-4 defense is genuinely absurd. Like, it shouldn't actually be a thing that happens, but he is just like, I truly believe if he had been on a different team that had utilized him better and put him in a better position to succeed, he'd probably be a borderline Hall of Famer.
Eric once said that about Kyle Williams after he retired. He was like, if he were in a better situation throughout his whole career in a bigger market, he'd be a superstar. But instead, he's Kyle Williams in the city of Buffalo. But I think we can all agree that Fred Jackson is the droughtiest player for the reasons that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Just a bunch of mediocrity, and we loved him for it.
I would for a quick moment like to proselytize Leotis McKelvin to the viewers. Leotis McKelvin, first of all, excellent returner. He has he had 4 career return touchdowns, which is like crazy valuable. He comes in as a starting cornerback for the first like 3 years of his career, roughly. He's very good at putting himself in a position to make plays and very bad at making plays. So he kind of plays his way out of the starting lineup when Gailey takes over. For 2 years, he basically only sticks around because of his return utility. And at this point, everyone's kind of sick of him. You're like, why is he still on the team? What makes Leotis for me is his resurgence under Pettin and Schwartz. emerges out of hibernation in 2013 to be a straight up good cornerback too for multiple years. And that came out of nowhere. Like everyone thought that guy's career was over. Everyone thought that guy's career was over. And the fact that he came out and like had a really good second act. Leotis McKelvin played for Rex Ryan. Like he was in Buffalo for longer than anyone remembers.
He was there for a very, very, very long time.
I wanted to give Leotis his flowers. And also would just like to say that if you're going to get a ironic Bills drought jersey, Leotis is damn high up there.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair.
Drayton Florence, though. Drayton Florence. Well, the issue is there's no one has a Drayton Florence jersey that they're selling unless you find Drayton Florence's eBay account, which he might have. Okay. We're moving on now to specific moments / things that happened throughout the drought. I'm gonna try to hit these quickly, like a greatest hits type of thing, so we can get through what we want to get through here.
Yeah.
Byron Brown gave Terrell Owens the key to the city. So like a 36-year-old, this was 2009, 36-year-old Terrell Owens signs a 1-year deal with Buffalo, which was out of nowhere. It's like, what are you doing, T.O.? Like you probably could have gone elsewhere. And what, the Bills are in no position to be signing Terrell Owens. Like, what is going on here?
No.
Byron Brown treats this as though Terrell Owens is going to come in and fix the city. He holds a press conference, gives him the key to the city, and makes it feel as though this is a huge deal for Buffalo. Says that T.O. is going to impact the economy. He's going to help with real estate. He's going to do all of this stuff for the city of Buffalo. None of which I don't think T.O. did any of it. I think he was here for a couple of months. He was fine, and then he left quietly, which it was just... That to me is a perfect encapsulation of the drought because we made a big deal about Terrell Owens, and it's what Buffalo loves to do, where we kind of equate the city and the city's worth as a whole to the Buffalo Bills. We kind of diminish it down to the football team. It's an awful idea. We often do it, not so much in recent years. Some people tried to do it with Von Miller a little bit, but thankfully, I think a lot of people were like, eh. But with T.O., we were kind of really on that bandwagon, giving him the key to the city, and nothing came of it. I don't know if he still has the key to the city. Any comments on the Terrell Owens getting the key to the city?
Not particularly. I feel like this was a interesting first act to the reaction to when they signed Mario Williams, which is not on the specific moments list, but first of all, Mario Williams was very good here for several years.
He was good. That's why
he was awesome.
Didn't include him.
But there was a time when signing good players was so rare that it happened once every few years, and it was like celebration worthy whenever it happened. Very droughty.
Right, give them their own cereal. Terrell O's, which isn't even clever. No, it is actually T.O.'s. That is clever.
T.O.'s, yeah.
Now that I think about it, that's good. Mario's. It was Mario's. Why do we give people cereals?
It's a weird Buffalo thing. Also that. I feel like this is a uniquely Midwestern thing. That maybe as Buffalo, we are sort of the Midwest's screwball cousin. We kind of partake in that. Very, very corny. Marv Levy got the general manager job at age 80.
He did, yes, he did. With no prior executive experience. And then, as I said earlier, he's hired, and during the introductory press conference, he and Ralph Wilson are kind of going back and forth as to what his role and title are. Again, Marv Levy had just been dragged out of retirement to come and fill this role, and he doesn't even know what it is. Ralph Wilson isn't really sure what it is. A week later, they figure out that, he's the general manager. And then Mike Mularkey resigns, and Marv Levy goes out in a press conference and is like, I don't want to rule out coaching. This is an 80-year-old man who was like, yeah, I might coach. I might do it. I might just have full control over everything.
Yeah, that was in terms of sheer moments that just this is the drought in 30 seconds.
Yeah,
That's got to be up. That is so up there.
that's definitely up there.
Oh dear
That's
God.
just, man.
Oh gosh. I feel like we kind of. Go ahead.
We kind of went over a lot of the Bills 2010 season. You know, the Marshawn Lynch being traded to Seattle for chump change and Chris Hairston.
Yeah.
Like, that's just
devastating. Sad day
man.
to be Kyle. It really was a sad day to be Kyle. And even at that time, Seattle was like not like a great team.
No, they were 7-9 and made the playoffs. Dick Duran is like losing his mind over that. Like,
right, and then Marshawn's kind of part of that core moving forward,
Yeah.
and wins the Super Bowl in Seattle. Maybe would have won a second had they just handed him the football. It's very upsetting how Marshawn Lynch, again, he probably didn't want to be here, but still, for the return, for the player that he would become in Seattle and what he means to that team, for the Bills to get 2 day 3 picks, one of which turned out to be Chris Hairston. It's not a great return.
Yeah.
But
remember when Marshawn Lynch raced Kyle Williams in a pool?
How can you forget?
And they put it on BuffaloBills.com.
Yeah.
BuffaloBills.com was a gold mine. People say oh, the Bills TikTok is undefeated, and it's like, oh, the Bills have always had an elite digital media department.
Yeah, they kind of have.
with the 12 Days of Christmas video.
The 12 Days of Christmas video is maybe better than the pool video. Leotis McKelvin starring in that as well.
Yes.
It's pure Christmas magic.
It is right. It's one of the Christmas songs right on repeat at my house. You got the Michael Bolton album, then you transition to 12 Days of Christmas by the Buffalo Bills,
Leotis
and then
McKelvin.
maybe then you throw in some Bublé.
Oh God.
What else is there? Willis McGahee. Willis McGahee is a great Drought player because he wasn't bad. The Bills had a lot of Drought running backs.
Good.
He was very good.
He was a good player. And then he leaves. He gets traded to the Baltimore Ravens, and he says the following about the city of Buffalo. Coming from Miami, I was used to partying, going out, just having something to do every night, restaurants, whatever. Going to Buffalo, it was like hitting a brick wall. Like, damn, can't go out, can't do nothing. There's an Applebee's, a TGI Fridays, and they just got a Dave & Buster's. They got that, and I'm like, what the? And the women.
He's right.
There you go. Now it's in context.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Good news is that this spawned the excellent video of Marshawn Lynch hanging out at Applebee's.
All right. Quick poll. Do you like the ambiance or the decor more?
That is a good
it's definitely the ambiance.
It's got to be the ambiance,
right?
definitely.
Oh,
yeah.
Easy.
The decor is not the strong suit in an Applebee's.
You don't like local high school football teams?
Baseball bats.
Oh
dear God.
That's an incredible
video.
video.
Was there ever a memorable moment from that Toronto series of games?
Oh, the Bills Toronto series, other than just the ever looming threat of we're leaving. Like it was ridiculous. It was
that might be the dumbest idea of the Drought era. Not like the most ill-founded, not like it's just pure dumb.
I have a Toronto moment for you guys.
Go for it.
So I think one of the last Toronto games was 2012. It might have been the last. Either way, South Korean musician Psy, known for Gangnam Style, played the halftime.
Yes, he did.
So that's an iconic Bills moment right there.
There you go.
And that's when I knew the Bills were coming back. That's when I knew the Bills were once again reaching national prominence, is when Gangnam Style was played at halftime of their game in Toronto. But no, that was just kind of that was part of Russ Brandon's, grand idea of expanding the regional identity of the Bills with moving training camp to St. John Fisher and then playing games in Toronto. But it just came off as, okay, they're just kind of introducing the Bills to Toronto before they move them there. And thankfully, that's not going to happen. I mean, we'll see if the stadium deal goes through, which, I mean, people can say what they want about the stadium deal, but it looks like the Bills are here to stay. What else? What are other moments that we could talk about? Someone tweeted at me and said Kevin Cobb slipping on a banana peel or whatever, which is
It was a training.
great...
It was a training match, which
Right.
apparently new Cover One contributor, Sports Rock, Ryan Sullivan, saw happen.
Oh my god, that is incredible.
That is hilarious. We should have him on. Let me message him real quick.
Quick. Oh god. So we have on here trading back to get EJ Manuel. The Bills insisting on drafting a quarterback in the worst year to possibly do it, and not even ending up with 2022 franchise quarterback Geno Smith,
who's still playing.
Yep, and
still starting kind of.
Will beat out Drew Lock. I would put
he will.
Lots of money on it.
Easy.
In 2014, when Jim Schwartz, the defensive coordinator, made his triumphant return to Detroit, winning on a last-second field goal, last-second Dan Carpenter field goal, and some players, including Darrell Johnson, I think, decided, hey, we're gonna hoist you up on our shoulders.
Yep,
like he's a freaking god.
Brandon Spikes was definitely one of the players who had him up on the shoulders.
Of course he was.
My
God.
So Dan Carpenter hits a dagger of a kick to win this game from like 58 or 59. The Bills only won this game because Lions kicker Alex Henry missed 3 field goals all within 40 yards. Yep. And they needed every one of those misses in order to pull it off.
And then at the very end of the Drought era, Rex Ryan gets fired, and Doug Whaley holds an hour-long press conference.
Yep.
That just, somebody needed to step in there and just say, we're done, no more questions. And they never did it. And he was just like, I wasn't privy. I wasn't privy to that information.
Yeah.
I wasn't privy to Rex Ryan being fired, even though I'm the GM. It's just like true pain. And like, there's like national reporters who are like tweeting about this. They're like, what is this press conference? Like, somebody end this. Like, what's
somebody do something, please.
This is mere weeks before Coach Troops gets hired. And like this was a real darkest before the dawn moment. Yeah. Of like when they actually hired McDermott, I was like, "There's no way these people made the right hire." I don't know anything about this guy.
I thought he was a goof.
He is a goof.
As a side Eagles fan, because my mom is from Philadelphia, I knew Sean McDermott when he was the defensive coordinator there. Yeah. I always thought he got the short end of the stick getting fired by Andy Reid and then replaced by O-line coach Juan Castillo. Like,
oh god,
bizarre. Truly one of the most bizarre decisions in NFL history. So McDermott goes to Carolina, has great success there. So when they hired McDermott, I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. He'll probably be like okay, but like I never expected this.
Right.
But I was like, okay, that makes sense. I remember when I got a notification, they're interviewing Sean McDermott, I was like, oh, they'll probably end up hiring him. That seems like what an NFL like going from Rex Ryan to Sean McDermott feels like a very natural NFL owner thing to do. Like, we need the exact opposite of Rex Ryan, and that is exactly what Sean McDermott is.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys remember this, but one of the first things that Sean McDermott did was he just came in and was like, no video games, nothing in the locker room, only a pool table, which I think he was like, that'll help with hand-eye coordination, which it's very funny.
Lord.
That's a good joke, Sean McDermott. But again, it worked out. Like, Sean McDermott did a lot of things early on that had they not made the playoffs that year, it would have gotten ugly, especially with that 2018 season. Mm-hmm. I think now we can start talking about how important them backing into the playoffs in 2017 was, because it kind of bought them the ability to do whatever the hell they wanted that offseason.
Here's the thing, though.
Next year,
like, coaching up that 2018 roster to be 6-10 is like a way better coaching job than the 2017 year.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, that roster had absolutely no reason to win 6 games in 2018. They were a horrendous.
Yes.
Allen was playing quarterback at a high school senior level that year, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Truly a chicken with his head cut off. All right, we need to wrap this up because we are like right against the air right now.
So
we need to pick a moment.
Oh, wait, what's the moment? Is it Marv Levy GM or T.O. Key to the City?
T.O. I'm saying T.O.
I think I got to go Marv. So Victoria, you have the deciding vote.
Oh no. As much as I love the press conference in which Ralph Wilson is like, no, he's not going to be the coach, I swear. T.O. getting the key to the city is pretty.
It is great. I'm fine with it.
All right, so Fred Jackson for players, 2009 Bills Patriots for games, Dick Duran for coaches, T.O. for moments. Who's winning? What is the most droughty?
What is the droutiest moment
for the Bills?
To me, it's between two. It's between Fred Jackson as a player and the Bills giving Terrell Owens the key to this, or Byron Brown giving Terrell Owens the key to the city for very similar reasons. With Fred Jackson, it's because we just kind of let him stick around forever because he was middling. So it's just kind of this representation of a long-standing mediocrity that we came to live with and celebrated. I mean, we did a 2-hour podcast about it, so I guess we are celebrating it. And then with Terrell Owens getting the key to the city, it's just this kind of unearned hope that, again, crowning him. And nothing came of it again. So just hope and optimism that nothing came of. So I'm fine with either, to be honest.
I'm gonna leave Fred Jackson.
Okay, I'm gonna cross out Monday Night Football Patriots. It is I think a very good drought loss to pick, but I don't think it can possibly hang with the other masters here. Duran to me is so emblematic of like everything, everything that is terrible about that well, I guess it's more of a like mid stretch of the drought. Like 7-9 3 years in a row is damn impressive.
It is.
T.O. getting the key to the city. Let me tell you, that is. I remember being 11 years old and saving up my money for months so that I could buy a Terrell Owens jersey. I was so excited. This guy's got the key to the city. Bills are finally
coming to my house if you wanted to.
Absolutely. Terrell Owens, come to my house. I feel like it has to be Terrell Owens because in a lot of ways, I think 2009 is the absolute peak, and it's because we have Patriots. It's because we have that Patriots game. We have Brown 6, Bills 3. We have Duran getting fired halfway through that year, and we have Terrell Owens getting the
and Fred Jackson.
We also have Fred Jackson.
Maybe it's just the 2009 season.
2009 season.
I think that's our answer.
Do we call an audible?
I think it's just the 2009 Buffalo Bills season.
Because then we also get Bills 3, Brown 6 as well lumped in there.
I think we have our answer.
Wow.
So when somebody asks you, what was the Buffalo Bills drought like? What was it like being a Bills fan? Because the Bills are getting a bunch of fans right now with the whole Josh Allen shit. But that's how you could describe Josh Allen, a bunch of Josh Allen shit. So when somebody asks you, what was it like being a Bills fan for those 17 seasons in which they failed to qualify for the playoffs? Just look at 2009. And that's all you need to know. That's everything in one. Perfect.
I love it.
Excellent.
Need a 2-minute outro here. So thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe to Cover One on all platforms, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube even. Make sure to follow Cover One on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, everywhere. Make sure to subscribe to Cover One Premium. There you will have access to the Cover One Premium Slack, and you can talk with your favorite Cover One personalities and also a bunch of other Bills fans about a bunch of topics, not just the Bills, about life, politics if you want. There might be politics talk. I don't know. I don't engage. You can. We just added a bunch of new writers at Cover One, a bunch of new contributors. So check out the website to check out their work. Make sure to follow David on Twitter at
DFAUXY or at DFoxy.
Make sure to follow Victoria at
Dirtbag Queer. Were you afraid to say it?
No, I just I have to give people the lobs. I have to give people the alley oops. And where can people find the Tuck Rule?
I believe it's on all podcast platforms. It's called simply the Tuck Rule. We're semi-weekly right now. We're going to go back to weekly for the football season. College, NFL, kind of weird football stories. It's fun. Check it out.
And you can follow me at Kyle Silagyi. So yes, I think we are out. We made it in time, just in time. We will be back next week to talk about God knows what.
Who knows?
Thank you. Bye-bye.